White Plains, who always went to Grace Church in White Plains, but they live in Cambridge. And actually, we're here at our wine tasting last night, and I'm tickled to death to see you come back. I really am.
Great event last night.
So, thank you so much for coming in. I'm so happy to see all the rest of you a little bleary-eyed. Okay? I'm going to assume it's me from being tired and not from too much drinking. I'll take that. So I decided that being this was going to be a tougher one. I see Claudia fighting to stay awake. You had a long day too. I know. I'm going to be very interactive with you today. I want you to kind of walk into this story with me. I'm going to ask you, what did you hear? What was so astounding about what you heard? Well, you heard Muriel, the first reading, and you heard the gospel, and you heard the story of a woman with a child who dies, and somebody brings the child back to life. There's a theme together. Believe it or not, there's actually sometimes a thematic relationship between the passage of Scripture. They do that on purpose. But I've got a question for you. In the face of death, where does one find faith? In the reality of death, where does one sit with it, look at it, acknowledge it's real, and even beyond hope, still have faith? Where? And this is very personal because, as many of you know, yesterday I spent most of the day officiating at a wedding that was held at St. Paul's. And the reason why that wedding was held there, as opposed to the original time it was scheduled back in November, or way ahead in November, was that the father of the groom is dying. All right? And the whole idea was hopefully that he would come and attend the wedding of his son, which he never was able to do. He was still in the hospital room yesterday. More than likely, he is never going to leave that hospital room on this side of the grave. But we were able to Skype him in. So he was able to see his son and future daughter-in-law to be married. But it's a very interesting experience to deal with the joy of a wedding over which there is this incredible, palpable, you can feel it, cloud in the church congregation because there is such sadness there. Watching the mother of the bride out of my now functioning good eyes, and mother of the groom, and I could see the tears, and I knew those tears were happiness for her son and incredible sadness for what's going on in her life. So that when you say to a young couple preparing those wedding vows with each other, and you can say that you're about to say the words for better, for worse, richer, poorer, sickness and health, look around you. This is what the vows really mean. What kind of support and companionship are you going to be for each other when one of you cannot get out of that bed ever again? And it was a very grace-filled moment. It really was. Was it a happy, joy wedding? No, not really. But it was a very holy one. That being said, where do you find faith? Where do you find hope in some of the ultimate realities of our life? So I want to walk you through the story. I'm going to do a little Bible study, and I'm going to kind of test you. All right? We're in Galilee. Galilee is usually hot. Okay? It's kind of like New York in the summer, except it's pretty much hot all year round. And there's this crowd of people, and everyone is crying. And at the head of this procession is a mom. And she is following what is probably a wicker, if not basket, a stretcher of some sort, with the body of her son on it. We're told, we have no name, that she's widowed. This was her only child. He's an adult, a young man. And he's died. We don't even know how. And we hear the sounds of people crying. Now, some of them probably are from family members. Some of that sound may come from professional mourners, because in that culture, that's what you did. Members came and they cried with you in an act of solidarity. We find it kind of strange, but that was part of their culture. They may be crying for her for real, because now she has no one. And that's not meaning emotionally she doesn't have a husband, she doesn't have her son. What that means is she is now stuck out there in limbo with no one to protect her. Women in that culture, you belong to a man. Either you belong to your father, you belong to your husband, you belong to your oldest son. If your husband dies, you were the property of, but also that was your source of protection. The only way a person, a woman like that would be able to survive was probably prostitution. That's her future. That's the hopelessness that she's walking with, in addition to all the grief of losing her only child. Who's going to care for her? Who's going to care about her? And there's probably an incredible smell. And I tried this at St. Paul's last night, and I guess this is not something that most of you do. Anyone here in the medical profession, have you ever had or walked in on a person whose body has died, and you know what that smell is like after a couple of days? Anyone know that experience at all? You'll hear it described as a sickly, sweet smell. Kind of, but sweet doesn't capture it. It's a gruesome smell. Think about that. As wonderful as we look and smell today, okay? That's our reality, ultimately down the line. But it is this, and that's why they would anoint the body with spices. Remember when Jesus taken down from the cross, they didn't have enough time to properly anoint him. That's why the women go to the cave on Easter Sunday morning to do the one final act of kindness. So, and that's why in that culture, and that's why faithful Jews and Muslims to this day, when are you buried? Immediately. Why do you think so? Because it's gross. Okay, it really is. Okay? So they're bringing this body probably to a cave where it's going to be buried. And then we are told that Jesus just happens to be in his meanderings through Galilee. He and the crowd with him, they kind of come at crossroads with this funeral procession. And we hear the words, and this is where I went back to the books. The translation is Jesus felt compassion for her. That is such a weak and simple translation. It really goes far beyond that. In the ancient world, they didn't use the same body parts in reference to the way we use them. When we think of somebody having feelings of love for a person, you make reference to the heart. In the ancient world, the heart was where you did your thinking. Okay, this is the place where you make choices and decisions. They would refer to the heart. When they talked about somebody feeling for another person, they referenced the bowels. Now, that's what they did, okay? All right? Because literally, the phrase said, to the depths of his bowels, he felt for her. That's the literal wording of the Greek that Luke gave us. And he's trying to make the point. Compassion to the point where you feel it as a visceral gut pain. He felt for her. He cared for her. And here's where it gets interesting. If I am a person like Paul, or if you're a missioner, and you're speaking to a group of non-Christians, this is the ancient world, the minute you're talking about the person we believe to be truly God who walked among us, you talk about God feeling such compassion for a human being, half the people in this room would get up and walk out. You would say that's nonsense. Because that's not what we expect in God. That's not part of God's job description. Because in God's job description, when they talk about God, talking about most of the ancient religious traditions, the one quality you expect of God, let's see if you can figure this out. All right. All right, I'm going to put you on the spot. Okay, you walked in here as a friend. Okay, I hope you stay. You've got two beautiful children, you might know, right? Right? It's okay. I'm still the same guy many years ago. Do they make you happy?
They do.
Okay.
Most of the time.
Most of the time, on occasions, have they done something that you wondered, like, where's your brain? What are you thinking?
Absolutely.
Okay. There are times you feel great, intense love for them.
Absolutely.
You're not God.
I thought God's love was absolute.
Brian, you got two daughters. Do you love them?
Yes.
Do they make you happy?
Yes.
On occasion, do they misbehave and that annoys you?
Never.
Never. Well, since you just lied, you know. I give one more. See if you can get it. Who wants to be the guinea pig? Don't all look down at your feet. Come on. Okay. Jim, in the role now in the family. Now you've got three women in that house, right? Okay. Make you feel great pride.
Yes.
Feel great love.
Yes.
Sometimes annoy you. You can say yes, it's okay. All right. Well, you're not God either. The definition of the divine in the ancient world was the inability to feel anything. Because if someone makes you feel something, they have power over you. So if somebody makes you feel happy or sad or filled with joy or anything like that, they actually are exerting power over you. They're making you feel something that you're not generating on your own. It's because of what they're doing or who they are. So in the ancient world, the primary quality of God was apathy, which you now you stop your head and say, what? You would think the primary quality of God's love. No, in their mind. And this is the point Jesus is making. Your expectations of a God is one who walks with you, who feels with you and for you. Our God is the God not only of life, but even the God of death. And that no matter what happens to us on our walk, on our journey, God walks with us. That's what Jesus is all about. And someone's telling me to warm it up. He asked you to do that, so she's going to do what I asked her. What we proclaim today is a God of healing, a God of compassion, a God who is like us in all things but sin, but one most importantly, who is the Lord over death, who will encounter and defeat death, who will experience for himself. And as our hymn says, he will triumph over the grave, and we will too. And that's where you find faith, and that's where you find hope. That's what this is all about today. Jesus encounters death on a journey towards his own, as a reminder that we're on a journey towards our own. As much as that man was in his hospital room yesterday during that wedding, he's just experiencing today what we're all going to experience. And on your journey, find faith, hope. Our God walks with us. Our God feels for us. That is the God that Jesus proclaimed. That is the God who Jesus is. And that's what you take home today. You're not alone. Amen.
Please turn to page 358. And when you have it, please stand. Let us pray. We believe